Hi all, welcome to my channel. I'm Will Wyvern. Today I want to talk about cord cutting rituals. I've got an example of one. Let me show you that example, and then I'm going to go ahead and talk about it further in depth. So here is an example of a very simple cord cutting ritual. The items you're going to need: some string, scissors, a lighter, 2 candles, one to represent yourself and one to represent who or what you're cutting the cord with, a snuffer, and then a little container. You can make it out of tinfoil, or if you have a little plate, something to hold ashes. So these are the basic items. The way you're going to set it up: put the 2 candles in front of you, take a piece of string, tie the candles together. This is going to represent the cord that exists between you and the person you're trying to cut that cord with. Now, when you have these tied together, the first thing you need to do, and the way this cord cutting ritual is going to be successful, you need to envision the connection. I know a lot of people tell you, ignore the connection and pretend the connection doesn't exist. That's the best way to get rid of it. But no, in this ritual, you need to actually envision the connection. As you're tying these candles together, think back on how this connection developed. Was it someone you were intimate with? Was it someone you spent years and years with? Was it someone you were always around? Because there is a connection, you need to acknowledge that connection. So as you're doing this ritual, as you're setting up, you need to visualize that connection. You need to acknowledge that connection exists, because this is not going to work if you don't acknowledge that connection exists. So once you have this set up, then you're going to go ahead and light the candles. Usually I light the one for me first, and I acknowledge this is my energy. This candle represents my energy. Then I light the candle that represents the other person or the other thing that I'm trying to cut that connection with, and then I let them burn. Not a long time, just so you can see that energy, know that that energy is your energy and the energy of the person you're trying to cut connections with. And while the candles are burning, you're going to take up the scissors and you're going to say, and again, you're going to envision the connection between you two. You're going to hold the scissors up. You're going to hold it to the string closest to the person you're trying to break the connection with, and you're just going to say, your energy is yours. Your energy is yours. Your energy is yours. And then cut the cord. Then you're going to go to your candle, the one that represents you, and say, my energy is mine. My energy is mine. My energy is mine. Then you're going to cut that cord into the cord. Then you're going to take up the cord and you're going to say, nevermore will we share. Nevermore will we share. Nevermore will we share. And then take this connection that represents the connection that was between you two, you can light one end and then light the other, and then place it in here and just let it burn. And watch that connection burn. Watch that connection turn to ash. And then you're going to go ahead and take these ashes and you're going to sprinkle them outside at the edge of your property, in a river, in the ocean, somewhere away from your home, just to signify and to represent the end of that connection. It's no more part of your life. It's something that's going to blow away in the wind, wash away in the stream. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and snuff out the 2 candles. First, go ahead and snuff out the other person. Just say, your energy is yours. Then snuff out your candle, the one that represents you, and just again say, my energy is mine. And then you're going to look at the space in between. There is no more connection. And you're going to say, nevermore will we share. Nevermore will we share. Nevermore will we share. And there you have it, a very simple cord cutting ritual. Now let's talk about what a cord cutting ritual is, why you need to do it. Everybody gives off energy. Our bodies are electrical, chemical. There are so many reactions going on inside of us. We give off energy. We create auras. There's electricity all around us. We give off energy. When we associate with other people, we develop a bond. We share that energy. Our energy connects, and that forms a cord, a type of connection, be it someone you're intimate with, a family member, a friend, co-workers, whoever it is. As you're around people at work, at home, at play, whatever, you form a bond with them. And sometimes you need to extinguish that bond. Sometimes you need to cut that cord. Be it you broke up, you left that environment, you moved on, just for some reason, you no longer want to have that connection with that person. Now, I know a lot of people say the best way to do that is just forget the connection exists. Just ignore the connection. Just pretend that person has no bond to you or no more play in your life. But that's not the answer. You need to acknowledge that bond so you can sever that bond. If you don't acknowledge that bond exists, you cannot cut that bond. Just like in the ritual, you have to be able to envision and see that bond so you can cut it and terminate it and move on. Reclaim your energy, get rid of that other person's energy, and make sure that bond is no longer there. So you have to envision it first. Once you envision it, then you can cut it. The reasons why, they can be everything from, like I said, a breakup, you're fired or you move on, you moved. I mean, I've had the most common reason for a cord cutting ritual is a breakup. Someone you've been dating, someone you've been married to, someone you've had a years-long relationship with, and you just want to move on. The only way you can do that is to cut that bond. You've got to make sure that bond no longer exists between you two. And no matter how much you deny it, no matter how much you want to ignore it, that bond exists. If you were with that person for any length of time, if you shared anything, any feelings, any intimacy, any just contact, touching the person, holding the person, eating with the person, talking with the person, all that forms a bond. You need to cut that bond before you can move on. And I've known people who have broken up or been divorced or ended a relationship with someone for years, and that bond over years still exists. They still occasionally think about that person. They still have memories about that person. They still feel that connection, and they don't know why. They hate that they have that connection still. They don't want to be a part of that person's life, and they don't want that person to be a part of their new life. They have to cut that cord. You need to actually do a ritual to envision that connection and then sever it and say, this connection's done. We are no longer sharing energy. We are no longer a part of each other's lives. We are no longer connected. You have to break that bond. Cord cutting ritual is how you do it. And the example I showed, very simple, 2 candles, a cord between them, cut the cord, extinguish the candles, and move on. You have to acknowledge that bond and cut it. Now, a lot of times you want to remember the good times. You want to remember the positives. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just have to let the past die. Let the past be in the past. Let the old times, be it good, be it bad, whatever, just place them behind you. Even with loved ones who have passed on. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this, and it is important that we remember our ancestors. We acknowledge our ancestors. And the thing about with loved ones or our family members who have passed, it's okay to acknowledge them. It's okay to remember them, but you can't dwell on them. You can't spend all of your time thinking about when they were alive, because they're gone. They're dead. They are no longer a part of this existence, of your current existence. And you need to put them in the past so you can move on and live the rest of this life, the rest of this existence, without being hindered or hampered or weighted down by memories of what you had and what you wish you had again. You have to cut those bonds. You need to move on. You need to go forward and stop looking back. I know it's hard. I know it's not something you want to think about, but that's what a lot of times you have to do. And like I said, you're not ignoring that person. You're not forgetting that person. You're just not dwelling on that connection you once had. You're not wishing that person was back in your life so you could go on trips together and do romantic things together and watch the sunset together, and all that's gone. You need to put it in the past. Cord cutting rituals do that. You need to cut that bond energy wise with that other person or that other thing. And that's even like places you used to work or worship. I've known people who have left an old religion to follow Wicca or to follow a new pagan belief system, but they never cut the cord with that old Baptist religion or old Catholic or Jewish religion, whatever they were before. And especially if you were in that religion for 10, 15, 20 years of your early life, you have a bond with that religion, be it something that you went to every week, the people you associated with, and you need to cut that bond. If you are no longer part of that Baptist religion or that Jewish religion or whatever, you need to cut that bond because you still have a connection to that church, the congregation, the fellowship, those people, and you need to cut that bond. Another example, I have a dear friend. She was married to somebody for almost 10 years, no children, but she not only had the bond with him, but she also had a bond with his family. They depended on her. They grew close to her. I mean, she went to holidays with them. She stayed at their home. They stayed at her home. Over 10 years, you develop that bond. Once the relationship with him fell apart and they got divorced and she moved on, there was still that connection to the family. So she had to do a cord cutting ritual to separate herself from the energy of that family group. She already did one to separate herself from him, but she needed to do another one to separate herself from the energy of that family group. So if you're experiencing that, if you're bound to something and you don't want to be bound to it anymore, or if you're having memories of something, or if you're constantly thinking of someone or something, you may have to do a cord cutting ritual because you may have that bond with that person or that organization or that group of people that you need to cut. So that's what a cord cutting ritual does. That's why you need one. I've already shown you a very simple ritual. You can look online, look in books if you want to do one that's a little more intense, or a little more, if you think you need some more energy, like if you want to call on your deity to bless you and to help you with the cord cutting ritual. You know, if you want to call on Hecate or Odin or Isis, whoever your deity is, there are rituals to call them down, include them in that cord cutting ritual. Or if you want to use elemental power, if you want to call on the elements, the power of the north, power of the west, power of the south, call on the different elements, the earth, the wind, the fire. Call on those elements to help you cut that bond. If you want to do more than cut the bond with a pair of scissors, actually use energy from the elements, or use energy from your deity, or the moon. The moon is, tonight is a new moon. Tonight would be a great time to do a cord cutting ritual, because the new moon brings along newness and emptiness. So you can better envision that emptiness that now will exist between you and that person. Once you cut that bond, there's going to be an emptiness. And the new moon helps to envision that, because you're moving on. You're going to go on to newer and better things. You're leaving that old life behind, that old person, that old connection behind. So, if you do a cord cutting ritual, I hope you never need to do one. I hope there's never an instance in your life when you need to do one, but I know there will be. I know there will be breakups. I know there will be changes where you're moving on and you will have to do a cord cutting ritual. I hope it's successful. I hope you find what you're looking for once you cut that connection and you can move on. And I wish you blessings. Use my example as a starting point. Find what works for you. Add and, take away different parts of the ritual until you find what works for you. Because again, this is your journey. Everybody's journey is unique. I wish you blessings. I wish you safety. I wish you happiness. And as always, thank you.